Scott. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We were speaking the other day. For the listeners that don't know, Gary's making me a new surfboard, and you and I were talking about volume versus thickness, and I thought, hey, you know what? Let's do a podcast because I think this can be a lively debate for some people. I think it's currently a debate for some people, and I've seen it on the internet. I'm sure you have too. People talking about it. So the volume versus thickness debate. Like I said, I ordered a board from you, and you're like, "Well, what's your volume, Scott?" And I said, "Well, Gary, I don't really know, but I can tell you that my thickness is 2 5/8. So maybe give me a little bit of a rundown on your thoughts on volume versus thickness."
Well, it depends on how the foam is distributed throughout the board. Thickness is the thickness in the middle of the board. So if you have a really a dome deck, you got not much on the rails, and if you have a flat deck, you can have more on the rails. So it's a matter. Volume is the quantity of foam that you have, And so if you want to go from one model or one shaper to another, they might have little different ways of distributing the volume. So if you know the volume, it's a lot better than knowing the thickness. As a 2.5 for one of my boards, a flat deck, and it goes all the way out to the rail, and I got foam all the way through the board. So the the center thickness doesn't mean as much. And you have 2.5 for somebody else's board, might mean the rails are an inch and a half, so you've lost a lot of foam. So it's just a way to reference the total amount of foam that's in the board that we didn't have. We used to shape by hand, and now you can put the dimensions in the computer. It'll tell you how much volume there is, and so it's a really good way to switch from one board to another, one model to another, and know you got the enough foam underneath you.
Well, my question has always been, yeah, but you're making me a longboard or you're making me a gun or even a mid-length. And I say, well, I'm 31 liters. I like 31 liters. I'm going to require more than 31 liters in a longboard, aren't I?
Well, yeah, just by its nature, the bigger boards have more volume. But what your shortboard volume relates to is more like, so I don't know how much you weigh, but I don't weigh much, but I'm 74. So I'm going to need more liters than, Kelly or Griffin Colapinto, those, doesn't need much surfboard on them because they paddle so fast, they take off so late, they don't need the extra volume to catch a waves. But me, I'm, slowing down, so I need about the same amount of volume as somebody that's 210 in their 20s. So if I know how much volume you need for your shortboard, then I can relate it to your longboard, which a longboard is going to have a certain amount of volume due to the size of the board. So it's probably going to be right up there about 60 to 70 liters for a longboard. A gun, 10-foot gun's got about 85 something that what Twiggy ride, but once again, I'm going to want a gun for somebody that weighs 200 pounds because I'm going to want a little bit of extra volume. So it's just a good way to calibrate the models into what your surfing ability and what your needs are for flotation and what you're used to. So
Yeah, it's interesting. Like my number has always been 2 5/8 whenever I order a board from somebody. I'm like, I don't know what my volume is, but I know I like it 2 5/8. And you bring in some interesting concepts like the idea that look, if I have a flat deck and it's 2 5/8 all the way out to the rail line, you know, like what's the shape of the rail relative to 2 5/8? And so I'm just saying, look, at the center point where my chest is, I like it 2 5/8. Please just foil it nice and beautifully.
well, that's one way to look at it. But I think that people like it. One thing I've heard other shapers say, well, yeah, but if you tell me I want a board 6.0 by 18 and a half, and I want it 2.25, but I want 28 liters. Well, I can't do that. But what you're going to do is go, well, the 6.0, that's length. We know that. Width, that's what kind of fits under your legs. So that's the second thing that you're going to hold on to. But the thickness is the one where you can go, okay, well, 2 1/4, that's not going to give me 28 liters, but 2 3/8 will. So I can work with the thickness with the other dimensions. So it's just it's just having a little bit more knowledge, that so that you can, take a online order and never see the guy and never actually see physically how he looks. Because the old days was like you're a circus guy, guess my weight and whatever, and
Yeah,
you just have one more variable that you work with. It's really important, I found.
sure.
And we don't have it. You're shaping 50 years and never use it. And of course it's going to be strange. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But got to keep your mind open.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something to me a couple of days ago too about which fits into this conversation, I think, about Bob McTavish saying, look, just stand there and I'm going to draw the outline of the board around you standing there with your hands in the, were your hands above your head?
Yeah,
How'd
you
that
held your
go?
hand all the way up like that, like a yoga pose. It stood up next to the blank, and then you held your hand like that, and he'd take a pencil and roughly draw your body onto the blank. And to me, that was one night when I was living up by Noosa and working in the old Greg Clough from Aloha. It was in Ronnie Woodward from Hot Butter, and we were in Caloundra in Bob's old cord surfboard factory, which was kind of just a barn. He came up with Wayne Lynch and John Witzig and shaped a board for the night before the nooses. I was just a 19-year-old kid, and I was totally blown away by that. But it made so much sense. It's one thing I've carried with me in my whole shaping career because you got to fit the board to the guy's body, and you need the foam where his body is, so that's kind of really how it breaks down.
If I walked into your factory and I said, Gary, I want a board, and you're like, okay. And then part of the process was you had me stand next to the foam with my hands over my head, I'd probably be kind of questioning whether I should get a board from this guy or not.
Well, back in, shortboards were just coming out, and we really didn't know what was going on too much. A couple of years of shortboards, and Bob, the innovators, if not the innovator, he uh, and Nat Young and Wayne Lynch, he had some pretty good surfers, and he was a great surfer as well. So we were just learning, and it made as much sense as anything else at the time.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, for sure. Um, well, as I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, but Bob McTavish, of course, we're honoring Bob this year as our icon of foam. He's flying over from Australia this October to be at the BoardRoom show in Del Mar. And we're pretty excited to have him because I've been speaking with him on the phone a lot, and he's just so much fun to talk to. Do you have any other interesting stories about Bob McTavish?
I got a lot of them, but one of my favorite ones, we were shaping in Japan. We both used to go over there at a time, and we ran into each other. I don't remember, probably in Chiba in the street or something like that. And he's got a big old smile, and I got a big. We always smile. We're pretty happy people, and I go, "Oh, Bob, man, I love seeing you, man. You always got such a big smile and everything." He goes, "Why wouldn't we smile? We're toy makers, And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we're making toys for old people, and so what better job could you have? And you just like he's stoked all the time, Bob.
Yeah.
Greatest guy you want to meet.
And one of the things about Bob that I think is true of you too is that you guys are forward thinking. In other words, you're not really kind of dwelling in the past, so to speak. You're constantly moving forward, and one of the examples of that with you are these Agave surfboard blanks, which you've been building for quite a long time. Can you give me some insight into, because you're going to be making me an Agave surfboard. I've asked you to make me a board, and what like First of all, what is agave? Maybe tell the listeners a little bit of backstory about agave itself.
Well, agave, everybody hears agave now. It's popular because they know that's where tequila comes from. But actually, it's like there's about 26, 28 varieties of agave. I don't know how many there are, but they're desert plant that has a big stalk that grows up, and that is the leaves that come out in conical leaves that are like this, and that's the moisture of the night air filters down to the roots, and then from that roots the stalk goes up. And the pollination is the flowers are way up in the air so that the wind can carry the thing. So that's the basics of the plant. But the one we use uh, is Calif. Yeah, I don't remember. It's a California, but there's various types. But they call it the century plant. And those stalks we use to like a stick of balsa wood or something, to cut it down, and it's kind of light because it's the material on the inside is like a straw that very porous, and it sucks the moisture from the roots up to the flowers, and so um, it dried out, it makes a great surfboard. So also very beautiful because the colors are different. The process of deterioration, it goes from its reds, purples, whites to grays and browns, and it just gets a really beautiful thing. So um, I started making them because a friend of mine, one of my team riders' father's a doctor and liked to make things, and he was giving care to an elderly surfer that didn't have any health care or anything, which is the case of a lot of the older surfers. And to pay him back, the surfer was from Point Loma, and he gave him a replica of one of the boards that they made in the 30s, and it was an agave redwood board. And it turns out that the San Diego shapers never got the balsa wood because the balsa wood would come into the port in LA, and all the LA guys would grab all the balsa wood boards, and then the San Diego guys had nothing left. So there was a lot of agave down in Point Loma, and so they cut a few down and started making their boards out of agave and using redwood. So it was kind of an interesting thing, and so this doctor decided he wanted to make some agave boards too, and he was in La Jolla, cut a bunch down, and couldn't get it right, making the blank and everything. So his son said, "Let's take these up to Gary, and he knows how to make a blank." So I started making boards and hated it when I first did it, and then after about three of them, I thought this is the greatest thing ever, and so I put about 20 years into it, and now there's a South African guy that was living in Kenya on a farm that had 33,000 acres, elephants, watering hole, the whole thing. And so they have all these stocks. And so they could really go through the stocks of agave and sort through them and find the consistency that's necessary to make a production surfboard that you're going to surf and not put up on the wall. I'd go out and harvest 8 stalks, and I'd have to use them, because whether they were heavy or they were light or they're too old or too new, because it's a lot of work, and you don't know till you cut into it what you've got. But this way we can get a production consistent density, consistent weights and everything, and make actually a foam substitute surfboard. So
How many
it comes
stocks does
a
it
lot
take?
quicker.
How many stocks? I imagine like balsa, you lay it up, you glue the stocks together. How many stocks does it take to lay, to get a, 22-inch blank or a 24-inch blank or
Well,
whatever you need?
um, if if you get big stocks, you if you have 5 pieces, that's a really good one, and you need 7, 8, 9, if they're smaller pieces. But
Yeah.
if you go and look at one of the ones like what they do in Kenya, they piece them together. So they laminate pieces together. So they're not all 5 stocks or something.
Right.
But if you look at one of mine, that is a collectible, and I go, this is one's really special. It'll have 5 stalks,
Right. Because they're
and those.
5 long stalks.
Well, the length is not the thing; it's the girth.
Mhm.
So the diameter at the base, that's where you get your thickness. I mean, that's where you get your rocker. So if you actually cut the rocker going tail to nose, so you've had to have a big piece that's wide, because it's got to be like, say, if you want to do a 10-foot board, you want to get 6, 7 inches of nose rocker, you've got to have about 7 inches of girth at the base,
Right. Where it's
because your
thicker.
tail
Yeah.
is top and the nose
Oh,
is the
interesting.
base.
Interesting. Do you think there's different flex down by the base of the plant rather than up by the, you know,
Yeah, I think it's a little bit denser at the top where it's harder, and that's where your tail is. So your tail's a little stiffer, your nose is a little flexes a little bit different, but that's probably not as noticeable as the difference in the flex overall, because agave does have a nice flex pattern to it, because, as I said, it's a real porous material, almost like a chocolate mousse that has coconut fibers going through it. You can see the coconut, or you can see fibers going.
I lost you a little bit there, Gary. You're frozen. Can you hear me okay? Let me pause this for a sec because I lost you. You're frozen. I can't hear and your screen is frozen. So hold on for just a sec. So so I lost you where you were talking about the chocolate mousse and the fibers in the agave.
Yeah, well, the fibers run all the way um, from from the tip to the base, and just run up all the way through the plant there, and they hold the internal structure together. The what we would refer to the bark or something. It's almost like steel or something, that the outside is very, very impenetrable, but the inside's very soft and absorbent material. It's not like a wood, and those fibers go all the way through, and that's where all the cellulose is. And it once you take the base off, or you take the outer shell out, then you've got a very porous material with these fibers holding it together. And so they provide a really unique flex pattern. It's not like foam, where foam is like cells grouped together, or in the case of EPS, it's beads grouped together. It has like little, like almost fiberglass running through the blank, and giving it a flex pattern that's different than balsa wood. Balsa wood doesn't flex very much at all, and it's really stiff. So it rides really good, but you've got to have the rocker just right, because it's not changing. Foam is too soft, and so it flexes too much, especially when you get to a bigger board. But agave, for me, is just right. It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
it's
yeah, it's like porridge. It's just right. It's like
It's like the Three Bears. That was too soft. This one's too hard. And this one's just right.
yeah.
And for shaping, it's the same too. Like balsa wood is so hard to get any curves. You're cutting like hand plane. Just you take a notch off, take a notch, and just getting a curve is really difficult. Foam is too soft. You can't really. You have to use an abrasive material like sandpaper or screen to cut it, because it's sand. But agave is just a really nice blend, where you can use a planer to get the roughing, but then you can take the little bands off with some sandpaper, and it's beautiful. I, I think my best shapes come out of agave.
This is so
So
fascinating because these were really some of the questions I had. Like as shapers listen to this, they're asking themselves, does the agave peel off this in a similar fashion, just say the way that a polyblank, a Sureform would peel off of a polyblank. And so you're saying you can use the same tools, and in fact, it's perfectly sensitive, almost, right? It's not too sensitive, but it's not too hard like balsa.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's the dust is not so nice. You gotta wear a nice mask and make sure you're protected. If I'm power playing, I like to do it outdoors, just
Right.
so that it because it just floats in the air and just stays there. It gets in your eyes and everything. So it's not the nicest material, but if you do all the rough work with the computer machine like we have the access to nowadays, takes most of the dirty part out, and
Yeah.
it's
What
it just not.
what about preparing the blank? Like, do you have to dry, like, how long does it take to prepare this blank for shaping, for putting it into the machine, so to speak, or firing up the planer? Like, does it come ready to go?
Yeah, the blanks that come from Kenya are all good. If you're making your own blank, it's another thing. You've got like if you were to see the agave plant is like they used to call it the century plant because they thought they bloomed only once every 100 years, but actually there's mature varying maturing process for each type of agave. Like the Weber blue agave that they make tequila out of matures in 7 to 8 years. The Americanus that's the one we see around here called the century plant. It's about 30 years. But
So you get one
once the stock,
stock every 30 years?
yeah, out
Wow.
of that plant, but they grow in little groups. So you get one every year once the cluster is matured. So you'll
Right.
see agaves growing together. One will grow up, it'll die, and it'll plant other little replicas that are going to grow. But once the plant produces a stalk, it's like a 7 month, 8 month process. It'll go up in the spring, it'll die in the fall, and then before you harvest it, I would like to sit 2 years on this on the stalk and then cut it. Then you could probably go ahead and make a surfboard out of it. If you cut it early, then it's moist inside and it has a tendency to rot. So but when you leave it in the stock, all the moisture drops down to the root, and then you're good. But
Well, so it sounds like quite a mission for you. I mean, you've gone through some major R&D with this stuff. Because you've got it pretty dialed. I mean, your average guy, your average shaper that's listening to this is like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be harvesting agave to make a board. It's quite a mission. You have to be committed.
yeah, it's like a project. But the beauty of the thing is that we're bringing the blanks in now, so you can go pick up a blank like it's a regular blank and take it to your machine
Oh,
or
okay.
and
Okay.
so it's we have a viable alternative to foam now.
So these
That's
South African guys are bringing blanks in now, like just like you say, like you could go to US blanks and pick up a blank.
exactly. So
Now,
the pro
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
the process I've been going through for the last 20 odd years, um, most of those didn't get ridden. Most of those were decorative pieces. But and I'll still do a couple, but it's not for a 74-year-old man to go out there. I mean, if you want to hear some funny stories, where the funny stories, I got plenty of them. What I
Rattlesnakes?
just
Are you getting bit by rattlesnakes out there or what?
I haven't got a rattlesnake yet, but that's a process. But one day I used to, just because they're all over the place, and you had to watch out for them. So I got to where I could see the tops of the stalks when I'm driving on the freeway. In fact, my wife used to tell me she wouldn't let me drive anymore because I wouldn't pay any attention to the road. There was any place there was a possible agave, I'd see one. And one day I was going out on the 8, going down out towards El Cajon. I was in La Mesa, and really hot day, and I see these stalks, and I'm going, oh man. So I whip a U-turn, go up to the thing, and I asked the lady, and it was a Hispanic neighborhood, and I asked her, can I go cut the agaves in the back? She goes, in your yard. She goes, yeah, 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 go back. I walk back there, their dog bites me. So I'm bleeding from the dog bite. And these they have these sharp leaves, and these were green ones, that when they're green, the stalks can weigh like 50 pounds or something, because if they're big ones, there's these two huge ones. So I'm battling with these and getting stuck by the leaves and everything else. Finally, it's like 100 degrees out there, so I'm sweating, just dirty, bloody. Finally get them cut and put in my car. And I get home, my wife goes, "What's happened to you?" She goes, "I've been agave wrestling." So not like alligator wrestling, it's just agave wrestling. But yeah, that's when I was about in my 50s. And now I'm just like,
Yeah. And what
just
about the
enough of
lady?
this.
Was the lady like, or she's like tabla de surf, like she was questioning the whole thing?
No, she didn't care. She was pretty cool. Some people you had to take pictures. They're just going, "Well, how much are they worth to me?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. You can pay somebody. It's 1,500 to get them removed, or I'll remove it for free." But it's weird. I never like to go in and just take them.
Yeah.
I always ask. Some people said no. Some people said yeah, get rid of it. Thanks a lot. But
Yeah. Interesting.
you know,
What about the one factor from my selfishly from my side of the equation is I'm concerned about weight. And I know that all the end user guys that order custom agave surfboards or any surfboard, we're always like, what's it going to weigh? Like is it light like poly? Is it light like even an EPS? What can you chamber it? Do they get chambered? It doesn't sound like you can chamber it.
you can. I personally don't like chambered boards, even the balsa wood board, because you sacrifice the performance for the weight. And I know it's funny, but for me, that guitar you've got there on the hollow body guitar you got up there,
Yeah.
well, riding a chambered balsa wood's much like riding it like a guitar. You either, if you can put your foot through it,
Yeah.
it matters, it vibrates, it's not that good. And so we don't really need to chamber the agave. And of course there's different weights. And like I'm saying, that coming from Kenya, where they have a selection process, we have lighter blanks, intermediate, and just like US blanks has different weights. You got a red, blue, and a green. So we actually have that. um, for short boards, it's a little bit tricky to get as close as, get a 5 pound board out. I don't, maybe can do it, but maybe not. Where you get to a gun where you need more weight, it's perfect. Longboard, fine. Mid length, we should be really competitive.
Yeah.
But I mean, the less cloth you put on it, uh, the less durable it is.
Yeah.
I can use 2 ounce cloth on a really light blank and make you a light board if you want it. But it's like a 2 ounce, or it's like a competitive surfboard for one of the CT guys. How many boards is he gonna get? He's gonna get 10 boards per contest
Yeah.
and ride that contest, and then probably get 10 more the next place he goes. So if you want it to last, you're gonna put a little bit more glass on. It's gonna be a little heavier, but a normal stock board foam uh probably is about 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Uh, so we can be in that range.
Oh, that's that's doable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a five
Yeah.
pound board is that how much they weigh these days? Like a 510 is a if I go to surf ride, is it 5 pounds?
You probably wouldn't get one from Surf Ride 5 pounds, because they wouldn't glass it for, but your pro
Yeah, you're
surfer
pro.
would about
Yeah.
five
Yeah.
pounds.
I've had boards that were too light, frankly. I thought they were too light. Like I need a little bit of like drive out of this thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's I'm glad you realize that because, light isn't always good.
Yeah.
Um, there's a weight for every type of wave, and that's what I've learned from, hanging around with the guys at tow surfing. They've got the same shape virtually, but if they're going to ride 80-foot Nazare, it's going to weigh 10 kilos, and they're going to ride 50-foot Nazare, it's going to weigh 3.5 kilos. So
Yeah.
then I started weighing my guns, and I found out that the board that I like the most over the years that I've caught most of my big waves on weighs 27 pounds. And I always thought it was a little too heavy, but I always make my drops on it. I never, and then I got a really beautiful gun that I love the shape. And every time I've ridden it, I've eaten shit, because it's too light. There's
Yeah.
too much board, not wave. So, you know, you you
What
gotta
about what
gotta
about this idea that was toyed with in the early 70s that Hinson toyed with, which is carving out a bit of the nose and putting lead weights in the nose? Is that just a novelty, or is that something that even today could be good in a contemporary big wave gun?
Oh yeah. The tow guys have weights they put on the boards that they want to like put a plate on it and make it heavier. They don't put it on the nose. They put it under their feet to stabilize the board. You watch when I mean, they go so darn fast. They
Yeah.
hit any little chop. But for a weight in the nose for a paddling board would be good. You could have a shorter board that weighed more that would you're actually pulling yourself in. You want to get it down the face, and also offshore wind.
Yeah.
You keep your board nose in the board wave.
And what about the concept of added V in the nose as you're dropping down a 30-foot wave in offshore jaws? I remember a long time ago, Mark Richards was talking about his twin fins that he made. He always put a little bit of V so that he felt like he was getting into the wave easier with a little bit of V in the nose. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a thing that Brewer used to really put in all of his big wave boards, and I mean every little bit helps. I don't think it's going to make it or break it, but if it would, the V does keep your bottom in the wave. That's why the V bottom is instead of a concave. Like the guys will say, "Yeah, I want some V in it because when I get in the foam ball, I got a concave, just gonna lift too high."
Oh,
When you
interesting.
ride barrel. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. So you mentioned the beauty of the agave that it's really pretty. What about if somebody wants to color it or tinting it? Is that something that is sacrosanct?
it just depends. It tints really beautifully. I always am kind of a purist for the wood because it has such beautiful colors on its own. But a light tint sometimes brings out the grains. Um, it's not something that I would do,
Yeah.
but it makes some beautiful boards. I mean, it just all depends on the person.
Yeah.
But I'm getting so
Well,
much color from some of the ones the wood that I select. It's just I don't want to take away from it.
yeah. Yeah. So the one that you're going to build me, getting back to my selfish surfboard, is it coming from the guys in South Africa, or is this one that you're physically going out and doing the hard yard on?
No, no, this is from Kenya. These blanks are from Kenya. So I want you to ride it
Yeah.
and not put it on the wall.
No, no, I'm gonna
Um,
ride it. I'm riding it.
yeah, that's what this is all about. We're trying to bring these blanks in and make them available, make an 100% organic substitute for foam, um, and not so much to totally change the way the industry works, but just to for me, balsa wood has always been on the ecological factor. It's always been to show people that things we might think is waste can be used. Like you look at the stocks, they just die and they just rot and people weren't using them, but I can make something really beautiful out of it. And it, having a agave board is something like that. Probably not your everyday all around board. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Depends on how deep you are into the board itself and into the concept or the plan for the agave board. But it's just to show people, there's other alternatives. We don't have to do it with the petroleum. We don't have to waste all that resin that goes
Yeah.
on the floor. It, it's
Well,
just
Gary,
a
I want
different.
a high performance surfboard that I surf really well with. I'm going to be straight up. I think the vast majority of consumers, we want boards that rip, and so frankly, I think that's what you're going to make me.
Well, that's the goal,
Yeah.
and it's taken this long to get there. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't viable, but if I'd never started making one through the process I described, we wouldn't got to the point where someone actually had set up a factory to produce them. And the one thing about agave it's an incredible plant for the environment because it cleanses the air and it doesn't take any water and it can grow anywhere. And there's a project out to plant 1 billion agave plants just to reproduce. I mean, the leaves can be cooked and used to feed agricul to feed
Population.
livestock.
Oh, lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
livestock. It just has so many uses. The fiber from the leaves, I've made a fiberglass substitute with.
Really?
So the blank, yeah, and with the juice from the leaves, we can make a resin. So that eventually, with enough investment, we can make 100% agave surfboard. But the fiber from the leaves is stronger than 4 ounce. It's not as strong as S cloth, but it's
Right.
stronger than normal 4 ounce cloth that goes on your board.
Right.
But I need $3 million mill
To
to
weave it.
to to weave it, and the leaves are getting thrown away. Like the tequila process, they just throw the leaves away, let them rot or burn them,
Yeah.
and that will be turned into fiberglass substitute. So it's an awareness is what I'm trying to do. It's an awareness project. The
Yeah. Yeah.
and the bikes are part of it. And yeah, the goal is to make boards that surf absolutely insane and are beautiful. When you're out in the water, when you have a wood board, an agave board, a balsa board, you're looking at the board while you're waiting for a wave, and it's trippy. It's like this
Yeah.
is something pretty cool. It's a different feeling. I can't explain it to you, but it's real.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited about you building a board for me, an agave board. I've always wanted uh I've always looked at wooden surfboards and went, wow, it seems like that's the way to do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. And I think I've told you, Randy Rarick told me that nothing surfs like a balsa surfboard, like a wooden surfboard. Like they're just way better for whatever reason. The feel under your feet, I guess.
Well, they don't flex the balsa wood board and they don't ever dissipate the energy. So shortboard, it's a little rough because we want some flex into a shortboard. But in a gun or a longboard, I mean, you're paddling your longboard, any foam longboard, you paddle, you go through a 1 foot wave and you feel it go, beep, and
Yeah.
you're losing speed. So in a gun, that's happening as well. And you don't want to lose any speed. But your balsa wood board just goes like a Cadillac, and you don't
Yeah.
feel the bumps, and it goes
Yeah.
plows right through them. So
All right.
it's it's something. Me growing up, I watching Diffenderfer, and making those balsa wood boards, and you know, that was the top of the line. If you could shape balsa wood boards, that you were the best, and that's what I wanted to do. So I've been on this, you know, goal to make the beautiful wood board, and you know,
Yeah.
diff was the man, you know. So
Yeah, I have one of Diff's boards in the upcoming auction. It's a balsa, chambered balsa, beautiful, beautiful gun, 7.6 wing pintail, just a gorgeous Diff. And the guy I got it from said that when Diff handed the board off to him, he said, I want you to know that this is the greatest surfboard I've ever built in my life. This is the best I've ever shaped a surfboard. And then he handed him the board.
well, I was really fortunate. I went to France when I was 21, and Diff was shaping at the Barlon factory in Bayonne, and he let me come and watch, because I was from PB, and he said, okay, you can watch. Go stay in the corner and watch, and he had these blocks of foam that Barlon made, and it was like he'd draw the rocker and the foil on the rail, and it wasn't shaping, it was an art process, and he approached it as an artist. And I told you a story about Bob McTavish, and so those two people really influenced the shaper that I became. But Diff had these three blanks, balsa blanks there. And he goes, okay, Leia, look at these. And he goes, yeah, lift that one. He goes, oh, that one's really heavy. He goes, yeah, that one's going up on the wall for Monsieur Barlon. And he picked up the other one, and it was like, no, yeah, that one's feel a little better. That one's a little lighter. He goes, yeah, that one's for my team rider, Jackie Baxter, who was there at the time. And I go, oh yeah, okay. And he goes, oh, okay. But he goes, I'll lift this one. He lifts this one. It's super light. And he goes, that one's mine. That one's Shaper's wood. So when I get my blanks or I get any wood, I go, okay, that's for the wall. That one's for someone. This one's mine. So
Uh,
if you go check out I've got a whole bunch of balsa wood boards. I've probably got over 30 that I've collected over the years, but most of them are Shaper's wood. So if you
well,
want
look,
to,
when you make my agave board, I want some Shaper's agave, my friend.
I'm gonna see what I can do. No, I'm not collecting for me anymore. I'll
Okay.
pick you the best. You're gonna
Okay.
at least get Jackie Baxter or above wood.
I'll take Jackie Baxter level wood for sure. Uh, I've always held that, at least from an archaeological perspective, that surfboards tell our story. They tell the story of who we are as a surf culture, and it's because they are our tools, right? That's what we use to do what we do. Um, when I was doing some looking at some boards for the recent California Gold Surf auction coming up here in about a month, I came across a Brummett balsa from probably 1977 or so. And it had Billy's signature on it, but it also had your signature on it. And I thought to myself, that's weird. This can't be two shapers that built this board. And so I sent you a picture of it. I'm like, hey, what's the deal here? So tell me about this Brummett balsa that has your signature on it.
Well, when I first opened Brewer Surfboards in Oceanside in 1978, um, I was still bringing blanks in from Ecuador because I'd lived in Ecuador for about 8 months, and shaped about 100 boards down there, balsa boards. I was a crazy experience. I was doing production balsa wood boards. I'd
Wow.
shape three or four a day.
Radical.
Uh, my first daughter was born there, and so it was kind of dream come true to be able to shape that much wood. But when I came back home, I would still bring blanks in and then fill my truck and drive up the coast. And Al Merrick used to be a customer, and some of the guys up in Santa Cruz. But that's how I made a living. But I still had some of my I did the brewer's factory, and Billy was my, I think he was a glosser or a polisher at one point, but he worked for me and he wanted to get one, so I shaped him a blank, and you could see that my signature is kind of light, but it says Gary Linden 4, and then he wrote Bill Brummett in it with a
Yeah.
dark pencil. So he
Yeah.
didn't actually shape it, but I gave him the blank and he glassed it and finished it off. But yeah,
Yeah.
Billy was a really cool guy, man. He had some stories. He went to Vietnam, and he was a point guard, or I don't know what he, not
Yeah.
point guard, that's from basketball, but he went out by himself into the jungle to scout. And
Right.
he told me he was sleeping up against a tree with his M16 like this. It just crazy stuff, and
Yeah.
it really got to him. He didn't really ever come back to
Yeah.
Billy Brown, the surfer he was, but
Yeah.
what a
He's a
great
great
man.
surfer.
Oh, he was a great surfer. Great craftsman too. He made really nice boards.
Yeah, people don't, that old MTB logo that's, I think, from the East Coast, but it might have been out here too. But that was Mulhern, Takayama, and Brummett, and as you know.
Yeah, but no, it was here out here.
Yeah.
They were in the worked in the chamber factory, but it was Gary Brummett, not Billy. Gary is his older
Oh,
brother,
I see.
and
Okay.
he worked for me as well. He was a glosser pin liner.
Yeah.
Now he's a pressure too, but Mulhern did the glassing.
That was
Takayama
Pat's
did the
dad, right? Pat Mulhern's father.
Pat's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and Gary Brummett did the color work and the glossing.
And
So
Donald shaped.
and Donald shaped.
Rad. MTB. That's an interesting logo, an interesting combination. I don't think it lasted too long, but makes sense. Well,
Yeah,
look,
that was a wild group.
I bet it's a wild time. Look,
Yeah.
we've had a great talk. We've said a lot. I'm excited. I've learned a lot about agave, and I think that shapers are going to be excited. How would somebody go about getting some of this agave that they're bringing in from South Africa? Like, I would love to see more agave surfboards in the lineup.
Yeah, they're coming in. The my friend Ian, who has a what he calls a Agave Brothers Ranch, is bringing them in. We're doing kind of a collaboration, and we'll have some at the boardroom um, in October, and then we're gonna just set up a little distribution thing. So if you're interested, I mean, contact either me at Linden Surfboards or Agave Brothers Ranch as a web page, and um, if you're interested, we're gonna try and do that same old route that I did before when I had balsa blanks, and fill up a truck with some blanks and go up in the coast and try and get this coast um, with a viable distribution network, and go back on the East Coast and just start bringing them in,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
concern.
cool. Well, very cool. And Gary, thanks again. Thanks for being on the show, and I look forward to surfing on my new agave Twinser. That'll be fun.
There you go. And what I want to do is I build it for you, and I want to put it in the Twinser Best of Show
Oh, that's
thing, and
right.
then you.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. You're right. So for listeners that don't know, the category this year for best in show is Twinser. So all you got to do is make a Twinser, any Twinser you want. It can be agave, it can be balsa, it can be poly. I don't care. We don't care. Just make it a Twinser. It can be a longboard, a gun, a shortboard, whatever. Just has to pay homage to that Twinser design, that sort of Will Jobson design. And so Twinser is the category for best in show. And Gary, you're going to be making mine and putting it in there. I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll stand on its merit as a functioning surfboard instead of the coolest looking one. And if it wins or it doesn't win, but at least somebody, they can all run to you and see, does that thing work?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. All right. Well, good.
on it.
I'm looking forward to riding it and telling him hell to the yes, it works.
All right, Scott. Thanks so much.
Okay, buddy. Bye
Always a
bye.
pleasure.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.